Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are once again shoving 2020 Marit Lages down our opponent's throat and winning the game that way. Yes, we're playing my beloved Turbodepths, the green-black build today rather than rainbow. For those who are unfamiliar, Dark Depths. This is a land, has 10 counters on it. When it's got no counters on it, you get a 20/20 flying indestructible. We remove the counters with Hexmage, or we make a copy with no counters with Thespian stage. That's the only way we win the game. We have 8 tutors to help us achieve this. We've got 8 pieces of fast mana here, and we've got disruption like hand disruption, and then we also have protection in the form of Not of This World and Pithing Needle for things like Caracas or Wasteland, so we can get our land combo going in the first place. This build has 2 basics, a swamp and a forest, so we play off of our Verdant Catacombs, so we can lead out with the Verdant Catacombs on turn 1, and then on turn 2 we can kind of do our combo usually, and we get to dodge Wastelands a little bit that way. We've got some silver bullets that we can find in our mana base, so the Boseijus, the Bojuka Bog, Sejiri Steppe, Ghost Quarter, that all kind of help things sail along. I've played this deck many times, and if you're interested in the minutiae of how this deck functions and all the different card choices and things like that, I do have a very detailed guide on my Patreon, which I update every month. Also, my Discord has got a huge section for Turbodepths on it, so if you want to discuss the various builds of Turbodepths, by all means, check out the link below. Sideboard-wise, we've got some tools here. For Abrupt Decay, kills Megs of the Moon, kills Blood Moon, kills Opposition Agent, Ensnaring Bridge, all the things that kind of annoy us. We've got 4 Null Rod effects, 2 as creatures, 2 as non-creatures, for all these artifact combo decks that can beat us down and just win the game quickly. So whether that's going to be 8 cast or storm combo or the dual combo that's started popping up thanks to Tony Scapone. So we've got options for that. We've got a couple of Duresses when we need more disruption, and we have 4 Surge Extractions which we can team up with our hand disruption against some combo decks like Doomsday, as well as just having 4 cards that can smash up graveyard matchups alongside our main deck Bojuka Bog. The other card here is Tamiyo's Safekeeping. Target permanent you control gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. You gain 2 life. So if this can stop a Wasteland from killing our land, or it can stop something from targeting our Marit Lage. So it's kind of like a worse version of Pithing Needle and a worse version of Not of This World, but both rolled together. So that can be quite effective. And we're trying that out today to see how it feels. So we've been running Legacy's Quick Reflexes, but it's not been something that particularly impresses me. And also, we don't have that many of the sort of slow white control matchups in the format right now, because the Bug Beans has kind of pushed out the Bant Beans in a big way. So yeah, this is our deck. A few things that are a little bit different to previous builds. We are now running the 4th Elvish Spirit Guide again to see how that feels by cutting the Legacy's Quick Reflexes, and we've got Inquisitions over Duresses in the main because the Goblin deck is everywhere, so having a spell that actually interacts with that is kind of important and can buy us that 1 turn we need. So this is our deck. Let's jam some 2020s. Remember to like and subscribe and check out the Patreon, etc. below. Let's go for it. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Right, we're on the draw for round 1. Let's have a look at our hand and what it can achieve. So, our opponent's a fan of the channel. So this hand, we can't Thoughtseize on turn 1. We can Sylvan Scrying on turn 1. That still takes a little bit of effort. So I think we're going to mulligan here and see if we can find something a little bit more robust. So this hand requires another combo piece as well. We can do better. Alright, this hand is probably the best of the bunch so far. We'll keep this. We'll throw back the Sejiri Steppe. We definitely don't want that. And I think we throw back a Sylvan Scrying here, because we want to be able to protect from Wastelands. So we'll probably turn 1 Pithing Needle for Wasteland, turn 2 Sylvan Scrying for Dark Depths, turn 3 try and combo, maybe alongside a piece of discard we have. Not the ideal hand, but things can definitely go wrong for us here. If they've got like a really powerful turn 1, we're just going to be too slow to do much about that. So the Marsh Flats into Swamp Start makes me think we're looking at some kind of Reanimator style deck. Grief Pitching, Reanimate. So our opponent is a fan of the channel, which means they're quite likely to know almost every single card in our deck. Not that that really matters here, but we'll see. So we're probably going to lose 2 of these cards. So I'll take the Sylvan Scrying most likely, and then when they bring it back, they'll take the Hexmage, and then we're probably not done, but we're not in a great spot. Right, I took the Hexmage first, and then they're going to bring back the Grief and take our Scrying. Yeah. So those were the two cards that I would take as well. So they just took them in the other order because it didn't really matter. What are we doing here? Come on, deck. Draw us something that we can work with. All right, we can work with this. We'll play this Pithing Needle. So we have two options here. We can name Grizzlebrand, or we can name something like Badlands and try and cut them off of mana. Neither of these is particularly great. That's a tough call. I think we're going to go for the Badlands. Sorry, not Badlands. Bloodstained Mire. Like, Grizzlebrand isn't really what we care about too much from our opponent. If they can choose a creature, they're going to choose Archon of Cruelty anyway, which is very hard for us to beat in this particular board state. But we can draw Dark Depths next turn, or Crop Rotation, and that is the game. Potentially. Obviously, our opponent has things like Archon of Cruelty, which can strip us of our Marit Lage. So let's see what happens here. We're just going to take the 3. Do they have a follow-up play? They do not. Okay. That's how we drew it up. Not the worst draws, I won't lie. But the cards are in our deck for a reason. Now, Archon of Cruelty still has us beat here. Or rather, it's going to force us to find a Thespian stage or Crop Rotation in order to beat the Archon of Cruelty. Alright, we got that one. Pretty happy about that. Getting game 1 against Reanimators, never too shabby. So Surgical Extractions are good here. Duresses are good. Some amount of Abrupt Decays are useful if they're going for the Mages of the Moon plan. We do not require Pithing Needles or Not of This World in this matchup, which means we get room for 2 Abrupt Decays. And we don't really want to cut anything else out here, so that seems fine. We can use our Thoughtseizes and our Inquisitions to take a Magus, as well as our Graveyard Hate if they try and reanimate it. This seems pretty solid. Let's go in again. We did get quite lucky with our draws then, but our deck is dedicated to doing one thing, so we could have drawn one of our 7 shooters in our deck, or a Hexmage, or a Dark Depths, or a Thespian stage. So we only needed 2 of any of that combination. So we had, we needed 2 out of 18 cards, pretty much, which is, pretty reasonable. And we had a few turns to get there. Alright, our hand does kind of do some of the stuff we want. We've got Hand Disruption, we've got 2 tutors, so we will get there eventually. And we can mess with our opponent's graveyard in 2 different ways as long as we get a turn. Obviously, Surgical Extraction just turned 0, but our opponent kept 7 cards, so the chance of them being able to win here are quite high. That's kind of what the deck does. Dark Ritual, I guess? No, just a Thoughtseize. Sure. So this kind of puts them in an awkward spot, because we get to Thoughtseize our opponent and Crop Rotation. And we do Thoughtseize first, because if they have a Magus of the Moon, we want to be able to possibly take that depending on what situation they have with their mana. Now, they might have some more action this turn, like a Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate, and that would just put us right into the bin, which is fair enough. Our opponent's taking a long think with his Thoughtseize. I can understand why. There's various different lines they can attack us from. Do they want to try and cut us off of tutors so that we need to find more pieces before we can do anything, because our deck is a bit anemic without it? Okay, so they're going for removing our access to Bojuka Bog, as well as our combo. Understandable. Sylvan Scrying. I think we are incentivized to Thoughtseize here. And we'll get a Bayou. Okay, so we've gone into Chain of Smog combo here. Interesting. So, yeah, this is an interesting one. So we take the Entomb this turn. Or do we take the Entomb? We can take the Entomb this turn, and we can take the Chain of Smog next turn. Dark Ritual will beat us if we take this line. If we take the Chain of Smog, then Reanimate beats us. But if we take one, we're not taking one of these guys because they can just reanimate them. So it's either the Entomb or Chain of Smog. I think it's the Entomb, and hope they don't draw Dark Ritual. Or we take the Chain of Smog, I suppose, because we've got the Surgical already, actually. No, that's correct, yeah. So if they do an Entomb line, we don't lose to the what's it called? The Oh, words. Hard. We don't lose to reanimate because of the surgical. But our opponent knows we have a surgical, so I'm not just going to plow straight into that one. Alright. Pitching the Entomb for this grief. That's pretty good. So we have a choice here. We can cut them off of Chain of Smog combo permanently. At the cost of... what would they take here? I think we will take out their Chain of Smog combo entirely. It's a choice, but... Okay, let's see how they sideboarded here. Gone full into the combo. Do they have any creatures here? No. Just Chain of Smog combo. No Archon of Cruelty. They've got the Griefs, though. And they've got Trolls. So they're kind of a lot fairer than I originally considered. Okay. So now we lose either the Spirit Guide or the Sylvan Scrying, though. But they have to try and win with fair creatures, which is something we're pretty good at beating. Now, we do need to find another mana source. Yep, I think I would go for this line as well. Mana sources are the most abundant thing in our deck. But this is a bit like where you see your opponent struggling on land, you wasteland them, and, you know, it can be pretty good. Verdant Catacombs. Don't mind if I do. Right, so we'll go and get ourselves a Bayou. We know they're not playing Mages of the Moon. Let's go and get ourselves a Dark Depths. That's the most important one. If we draw a Hexmage, we can go next turn. So our opponent needs to gain 5 life for this to not be a one-shot. So we should be alright here. Now our opponent knows that because we've drawn that land, we now have the combo. This is the downside of them taking the Elvish Spirit Guide. But I totally understand why you would take the Elvish Spirit Guide there. Dark Depths. Let's go and get ourselves a Thespian stage, Dark Depths, and pass. So next time we make a 2020 and we get to be on our merry way, hopefully. I didn't see anything in our opponent's deck that can disrupt what we've got going on here. Like if our opponent took the Elvish Spirit, took one of the Sylvan Scryings, we've drawn a Dark Depths anyway. Like our deck is dedicated to doing that one thing. Alright, they're pitching this. Just to take a look. They're going to be a little bit short on damage. Alright. GG's opponent. We managed to find our way through. Like our deck is very reliable at doing the thing it does. It's a case of, is that thing, do we have enough protection for it normally? And is it good enough in the matchup? That's usually the main questions. Alright, we are 1-0. Let's go to round 2. We're on the play for round 2. What does our hand do? Quite a lot to puzzle out here. So we can do a turn 1 Pithing Needle on Wasteland. Then we can untap for Dark Depths off the Sylvan Scrying. And then we still need to find a black source is the problem if we want to do it this way. Although if we get the Dark Depths, we have 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. Yeah, okay, so this makes a turn 3 2020 with 2 forms of protection. I think this is acceptable to keep. If our opponent bodies us with a turn 1 combo, then so be it. Do we play out a Petal? I think we do play out a Petal in case our opponent has some kind of like tax effects. Okay, Ancient Tomb. Sphere of Resistance. Yep. That's the exact reason why we would want to do it that way. What can we find here? A Knot of this World. Unlikely to be the most useful thing. Alright, we will Sylvan Scrying here. And go and get ourselves a Dark Depths. Now all we're looking for is additional mana. So an Elvish Spirit Guide would be the best draw for us. But Urborg is useful. We should be able to race this as a Saga. A Shadow Spear. Sure. A Verdant Catacombs. Sure, we can play this out. This allows us to copy something with Thespian stage if we need to. And the next time we make a 2020. And hopefully that's good unless our opponent is on white mana sources. I don't believe our opponent's going to have... Okay, they are on white mana sources. Understood. So we definitely want to draw a Elvish Spirit Guide if we can get that going. Ingenious Smith. Okay, our opponent is on a little bit of a brew here. Let's see what they find. A Mox Opal. Not the best versus Sphere of Resistance, but they can just pay the mana and cast it now, yeah. Alright, so we want an Elvish Spirit Guide, ideally. A Thoughtseize. Problem is, Pithing Needle is quite likely from our opponent here. We don't get to do that Thoughtseize. We will get a Bayou here. We make a 2020 now. This can Pithing Needle to shut down Thespian stage. We don't get to Thoughtseize. We don't get to Not of This World this way, which is awkward. I believe our opponent is likely to be okay here, but we'll see. They didn't Solitude at end of turn, so that's good. Do they have something like an Ether Spellbomb here? That would obviously be very annoying, and we're probably losing the game if that happens. But we have to play around the Pithing Needle, otherwise we just... Like, they'll definitely have a Pithing Needle in their deck. Alright, they didn't have anything, and we correctly played around the Pithing Needle, and we got the win there. So, our opponent looks like an artifacty style combo deck. So, I would like some number of these things. Null Rods, Collector Ouphes, Abrupt Decays. They have white mana, though. I don't believe we need Pithing Needles from what we've seen so far, and then we have to cut other protections. So, Bojuka Bog, unlikely that we're going to need that. Ghost Quarter can hit a Saga before it pops, so that's going to be quite important. Our hand disruption probably has to be where we trim back next. And Not of This World's can be awkward if our opponent is trying to kill us with white removal. So I think if we just shut them off of stuff here, I'd rather have Not of This World than a Tamiyo Safekeeping. So we've got 3 Not of This World to protect from white removal as well as our crop rotation. We've got the decays here because I'm expecting more like possibly Painter's Servant type stuff in there. We might need to blow up some spheres, Ensnaring Bridge, that sort of thing. We can shut down their mana this way. This is the plan. Pithing Needle for as a Saga is a pretty relevant thing to do as well. We're hoping to kind of race that more than anything. Okay, this requires us to find one more piece. But we have a very powerful Haymaker. So I'm going to keep this and hope that our Null Rod can do a lot of work from what we've seen. Our opponent's got like Mox Opals and stuff like that. So let's see if this Null Rod does. And we've also seen the Artifact Lands, which is obviously an excellent one to try and shut down. So here is our first decision point. Are we Thoughtseizing our opponent, or are we just slamming this Null Rod? I think the Thoughtseize is likely to be better. So I'm going to go for this Thoughtseize. Because we want to take out the thing that isn't... oh, interesting here. So they're just going to put a Lotus Golem into play next turn if we leave them with what they have in hand right now. So let's take that away. And we will play out our Petal because we've seen Sphere effects and so on and so forth. Okay, so I think our opponent might be playing that, like, White Prison deck that won a challenge. Okay, a Wasteland. Didn't know they were going to have Wastelands, so that's something for us to get through. We've already got the Ghost Quarter that answers that, though. I think we're Sylvan Scrying first here. We're going to get the Dark Depths. The downside of doing this means that we don't have the Sylvan Scrying in case we draw another copy of Dark Depths. But if we do have that, we can feed the first one out to a Wasteland. So this game's going interesting. Like, we could have thrown out the Null Rod there, but then we didn't really get much value with our Lotus Petal. And then next turn we can double spell potentially instead. Expedition map, sure. This might be a little punish for that then. Alright, what are they going for here? Another Wasteland, maybe? Another Saga, sure. It's pretty reasonable. A crop rotation. Okay, that's a useful one to have. So we can make our 2020 this turn. So if we play this out, we have 3 mana here, so that's 1, 2, crop rotate away. So if they tap their Wasteland down, we just win. And if they don't tap their Wasteland down, we get to untap, play the Ghost Quarter, and then force the action on it. Right, here is the Ghost Quarter. Are we forcing action now? I think so. So this will go and get us our Thespian stage. Thespian stage copies this. Keep this one. And we've got the Not of This World in our back pocket if they do have any white removal. We know 2 of the cards in their hand. The Not of This World also protects from abilities, which is quite useful. They could be doing like an attack with the Construct token with a Shadow Spear on to try and gain enough life to go above 20 to buy them another turn. Interesting that we never really got around to doing our Null Rod stuff here. A Chrome Mox, imprinting Emiria's Call most likely. Chancellor of the Annex. Okay. Ingenious Smith. Sure. We can't do anything about that. We have full knowledge of what's in our opponent's hand, and it doesn't beat what we've got going on. Okay, a pretty clean 2-0 so far. There's a reason I love this deck, and I think it is very good right now. Let's go to round 3. Right, so we're on the draw for this one. We do have access to our combo. We've got some disruption of varying kinds, but we are very reliant on this Lotus Petal to do the job for us. But we're on the draw. We're quite likely to draw more mana. I think this is acceptable. If we draw a land on our first turn, then we can happily play the Pithing Needle and the Thoughtseize. Prismatic Vista. Okay, so we're probably looking at either like a blue-green Omni-Tail build or a slow control deck. Okay, we are on the Yorion. The Yorion taxes, I guess. Interesting. Okay, I think we have to offer up our Urborg to the gods here. So this is probably Pithing Needle. I think we still have to name... Oh, do we name Wasteland or we name Aether Vial here? I think I'm going to name Aether Vial. Just shut off what our opponent's doing. And I'll play this Lotus Petal out in case we want to crop rotate away our Urborg if they Wasteland it. Our opponent is a fan of the channel. Always lovely to see. Alright, so there's the Wasteland. We've played around this sort of with our crop rotation. Mother of Runes is not particularly relevant against us. There are situations where it can do some work though. Alright, so are we casting... I think we're probably casting a Sylvan Scrying here. So the question here is, what are we getting? I think it's the Thespian stage rather than the Dark Depths. Although the Dark Depths does tap for black underneath our Urborg. But I think Thespian stage is actually where I want to be here. Because that way if something happens, like if they have running Wastelands and we end up not having enough access to mana, we at least have a land that taps for mana. So we can cast half of our Sylvan Scrying. Yep, I'll happily take one from the Mother of Runes. Our opponent correctly identifies that it's not going to do much unless they have a flying blocker anyway. Have a Wasteland to beat, but again, we have things that allow us to do that. So we can't quite do it all here. Cast Pithing Needle. Just name Wasteland. So now we have this Thespian stage. Then we cast Sylvan Scrying here. I'm going to get ourselves Dark Depths. We've still got this crop rotation up the whole time. Our opponent missed land up on their previous turn, which is pretty good for us, but there's all sorts of white removal that our opponent could be jamming at us. Orcish Bowmutter, sure. That's why we're saving this Thoughtseize. We want to cast it the turn that we have to go off. We're not under a lot of pressure, so we can afford to take this one slightly slower and then check our opponent's hand before we make a 20-20. And Urborg will be quite helpful for doing that. Marsh Flats, sure. We are fixing our opponent's mana with the Urborg, but again, we don't really care about a decent selection of our opponent's spells here. It's just the white ones, really. So the plan is that hopefully between our Thoughtseize and our crop rotation, we can beat what our opponent's putting down. Certainly possible. See another Aether Vial here? No. Black and 1. Numazao is Jitte. Okay. That can gain life, which is not irrelevant for sure. Okay, so we play this out. Tap this for black. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent. A Solitude, a Thalia. Thalia is a little bit annoying, but obviously we're taking the Solitude here. And then our opponent's turn, we can make a 20-20. We can block a creature, but they will be able to gain 4 life here. So we're going to need 2 swings to get there. But if they're equipping their Jitte, they're less likely to have other stuff that we're worrying about. Okay, black, so we're not going to worry. So our crop rotation should be good here to protect our creature. This is just a play that they simply have to make. Dark Depths. Let's have a 20-20. We block the thing with the Jitte on, so at least they have to re-equip it if they want to try and gain some, or do something next turn, although the life gain isn't going to be enough. Okay, sure. So they're just giving it protection. We are saving some damage here. So our opponent goes up to 21 off of this. Thalia. That means we know the last card in our opponent's hand. That's acceptable. Because we will untap with mana for crop rotation. Right, so this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. And then we kill them on the next turn. So I believe we are okay here. Yep, there's the life. And we're just holding up this crop rotation. Okay, they're pumping it into it twice. I don't think you have to pump into it twice. Maybe there's some... I don't think there's any way that's going to give them enough damage, but maybe if they've got enough chump blocks going on. But we do have the way of just pushing through using the Sejiri Steppe, because if they draw a Flicker Wisp this turn, we can protect our guy. But I guess they can then Mother of Runes. So actually Flicker Wisp would be a very good draw here for our opponent. It'd actually be kind of tough for us to answer. We would need to find a Pithing Needle for the Mother of Runes to get through. Alright, they didn't draw Flicker Wisp. Excellent. So, we go to sideboarding. This is a matchup where things like Abrupt Decay are pretty interesting. Duress can be interesting, but also cannot be interesting at the same time. The Tamiyo Safekeeping, so the reason why I say Duress is we can hit Source of Plowshares, we can't hit Solitude, we can't hit Flicker Wisp, that sort of jam. Null Rod effects are kind of good to shut off the Vial, but Pithing Needle kind of already does that as well as other stuff. We want the Tamiyo Safekeeping because not only does it protect us from all the white removal, it also protects us from Wasteland. So, the Bojuka Bog is not a card we will need in this matchup. We can probably afford to go a little bit slower in this matchup, so we can take out some of our fast mana here. The Inquisition hits some of their things, doesn't hit all of their things, as is the nature of the world sometimes. So the reason we're doing half and half is because Lotus Petal is very good for our colours, for playing Hexmage, but Elvish Spirit Guide is very good at paying around Thalia attacks, so you kind of split them on this one. Also, surprise Tamiyo Safekeeping off of a Spirit Guide is quite tasty too. You mess up your opponent's calculations quite often with Spirit Guide. There is an option of playing things like Surgical Extraction in this matchup, so you will extract all your opponent's like Source to Plowshares or Solitude, so you just don't have to worry about that, or take out all their Wastelands. But I don't think that's where we necessarily want to be, because Abrupt Decay is just good in this matchup. Like, it takes out the Vials, much better than any sort of Null Rod effects does. It can take out some other problem permanents along the way. Alright. What does our hand do? It requires us to find something else, but we do get to shut down some early stuff, if that's what interests me. We basically got to draw 1 in 12 cards for this to get anywhere. I think we mulligan because we don't have access to specifically Dark Depths. Okay, now this hand is very good. I will keep this one. We will get rid of the Sejiri Steppe, and hopefully we'll have a great time. Thalia is actually annoying against us with this particular configuration, because if we go... Okay, there's the Vial. So if we go like Urborg... Oh wow, that's another good draw. So this is Pithing Needle. We need to put this on Wasteland this time around. We'll play the Lotus Petal out to get around taxing effects. Next time we play the Hexmage, holding up Tamiyo's Safekeeping and Not of This World. And that's should all come online before the Aether Vial gets up to 3, which is the scary number. So I believe our chances here are pretty high. They didn't play a Thalia this turn, which also helps. Right, there is our Hexmage. And our opponent's upkeep will do this in case they've got other effects that hit our lands, like Ghost Quarter, whatever. Because they're a Euron deck, they're almost certainly going to have those effects. Alright, I'm feeling like I'm in a pretty good spot. Normally this matchup, the longer it goes on, the worse it gets for us as a general rule. So putting this into play on turn 2 is exactly where I want to be. Which one have you got here? A Flicker Wisp. We have this covered. So we'll target our Marit Lage. We will counterspell that. We do have to get through this Flicker Wisp, so it can buy them a turn, unless we just randomly draw Sejiri Steppe. But we do have another way of protecting our guy, so I don't feel so bad about going through another turn cycle. Or our opponent's going to have a bad time here. This hand was pretty good. Like, we will lose to another Flicker Wisp. Alright, we will play this on Aether Vial. Our opponent has to block here. We've only got 2 cards in hand. They obviously don't have another Solitude, but they could have a Plow or something here. But they're an 80-card deck, and they've already had 2 of their answers, so hopefully they don't have a third. Or they do run a lot of answers. Alright, there's the Plow. So, now we're back to this. Okay, do they have a follow-up here? They're just going to put Euro into hand, sure. Alright, there's a Bayou. I'm just trying to think if we want to put this Pithing Needle on anything in particular. I think we can wait to see what they play. Like if they play a Mother of Runes that we want to stop, or if they play a Stoneforge Mystic, we can just turn off the ability to put things in. I think it's better to wait and see here, because we've already got the Vial and the Wasteland covered. Yeah. If they have a Skyclave Apparition here, that's terrible news for us. They're just playing the Yorion. I don't believe they're going to flicker their Vial. It's not really necessary here. Right. Come on, deck. A crop rotation. All right, that's part of the way there. So we're just looking for either half of our combo is enough here. So we're still odds on, I would say. Okay. We can play this Hexmage out. And then next time we can do Mother of Runes shenanigans. So we can Pithing Needle the Mother of Runes so they can't just permanently block with their Yorion. Whilst also having our crop rotation up. Thoughtseize. That's very, very good here. Yeah, there goes the crop rotation. So now we need to draw one of our 7 tutors in our deck. Or the Dark Depths. Now we've got turns to work with because our opponent has given us a big chunk of life. Thanks to that Source to Plowshares. But, not this world. Are we... Alright, I think we're going to put this on Mother of Runes here. Let's go to attacks. Like, if they have an Orcish Bowmasters, they get this guy anyway, so... I haven't done the math, but it's nice to stop our opponent from being able to, like, plow their own guy if they end up in a weird situation or gaining a load of life with a Jitte by putting a little bit of pressure on with our guy. An Elvish Spirit Guide. It's not quite the one we want here. Are we supposed to attack or block here? So this kills in 8 turns. They're attacking for 5. 6 turns. So I guess we are supposed to hold back here. Right, this one is escaping us a little bit. No Mother of Runes attack this time. Swords to Plowshares. Would I like to gain 2 life? I would. We could play an Elvish Spirit Guide here just to keep our opponent from attacking us. Probably going to be better than using this as mana. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Or 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So it does buy us a turn if we cast this as a creature. And 4 mana is probably going to be enough because we need to find at least 1 land before we do anything anyway. Skyclave Apparition. So we're going to lose our Elvish Spirit Guide or our Pithing Needle on Wasteland, which is probably the better one to take here. Yep. Our opponent agrees. And now they can strip us back to nothing. Going to be a little bit awkward here. I think they probably want to Wasteland straight away there. Because otherwise we get to... Are we Thoughtseizing now? It doesn't seem like where we want to be. I think we need to hold up our Thoughtseize when we're trying to go off. I don't say if they Wasteland us when we're all tapped out, then we're unlikely to be able to crop rotate and save something. Excuse me. Because if we were sandbagging a crop rotation till we know what part of the combo we need to find, they could have blown us out by just taking out lands in general. Like, they don't have to fire off both Wastelands, but I think firing off one there is pretty good, pretty reasonable. A Cabal Therapy. Right, I don't think they're going to name Thoughtseize here. Probably going to name Sylvan Scrying. Name crop rotation, sure. So now they're working with perfect information in our hand. They've got a bunch of extra cards over there. Things looking a little bit dicey for us. A Sylvan Scrying. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent just on the off chance they have a... Okay, I just got Ether File. So I'm going to say if they've got an opposition agent and they're just sandbagging it. Let's crack this. We're going to get Bayou. Yeah, we don't get wasted off colours here. Green, green. Let's Sylvan Scrying. Because we know they play Thoughtseizes. We don't want this to get caught in our hand. So we play out the... We get the Dark Depths here. Because that's the most important one. We've already gone through one of them. Alright, opponent. Another Wasteland. Okay, so we need a Pithing Needle is what you're saying. Understood. Maybe we're a bit too hasty on putting that on the Mother of Runes. Like, it makes sense when we're actually comboing off. And we don't want them to be able to block. But what really was the Mother of Runes doing anyway? Yeah, maybe we didn't need that. Although, keeping cards in hand against the deck that's running Thoughtseizes is not always that smart either, so... A crop rotation. Okay. So we need to find a Pithing Needle next turn. Basically. Sure. Let's see if we can do that. We also want to be blocking with our Spirit Guide here. I guess Thespian stage here. This is awkward. Verdant Catacombs. It's not really the one we're after, was it? I'll play this out. They can just beat us with Wastelands here. But we kind of need our opponent to make a mistake to win this game, I believe. The other option there is to hold back and hope we draw the Needle next turn. But if we play the Needle, they just wasteland all of our stuff in response. I guess we can float the mana, but we need 2 lands in play. It's kind of awkward. Right, this puts us to 2. Our opponent still has 2 cards in hand. One of them is an Ether Vial. A Boseiju. No, I don't think we're going to get there here, are we? I think our opponent's going to make the requisite mistakes. So, do we want to do anything differently here? I don't believe so. Do we need as many Abrupt Decays as we've got here? That is the next question. I think I would rather have one more Lotus Petal on the play and just power things out a little bit quicker. No, this hand does not do the things it is required to do. This hand does do some stuff. Alright, I think we keep this and I think we throw back a... Is it a Dark Depths here? I think it is a Dark Depths. And we go turn 1, crop rotate into Urborg. And we get to Thoughtseize our opponent and see what they're working with. Ether Vial, Mother of Runes, Swords to Plowshares. Alright, we'll take the card that we can't necessarily beat and we'll pass it over. We can beat the Caracas with the crop rotation in our hand when the time comes. Dark Depths. Do you want to use this to bait out Wastelands? Potentially. Alright. There's the Caracas. It's a pretty good one. So we've got Pithing Needles. We've got Not of This World. That usually works. Let's see what our opponent does here. Yep, there's the Mother of Runes we knew about. Would love to have had an Elvish Spirit Guide in hand instead of Dark Depths, but it is what it is. Okay, so showed us that. So we know 2 of the cards in our opponent's hand. Are we supposed to wait? If we draw a Pithing Needle or a Thoughtseize, that can help us out. But we would need the land as well for it. No, I think we just go for it here. Like, it gets worse for us after a time. And we know our opponent has 2 cards that are useless here. So we counter this. It feels like our opponent has a plow here. But they should go the other way round. Because that way we don't gain 20 life. So now we have some time to rebuild. And hopefully we can get there. What? Okay. Alright, let's play this on Caracas. That's an unfortunate one. So, any green land, any land that produces green gives us a chance to go next turn. Obviously, Thespian stage does too. So that's what? Quite a lot of our deck, right? Lotus Petal also works because we float 2 and then we sack the Urborg. So we've got outs here. It's just an opposition agent because that is a real pain. Okay, Recruiter of the Guard, probably finding opposition agent. Or Solitude. A Flicker Wisp, sure. With Vial on 3. Yeah, I think this game is over now. Our opponent's just had enough time to get out from underneath where we were. Okay, well we have some amount of our combo here. So the Flicker Wisp is going to go find another Flicker Wisp, I believe. Yep, they found another Flicker Wisp. So it just gives them the most amount of damage they can put down, whilst also protecting by just getting the 3/1 flyers, cracking away, and having many chump blockers. Now, Sejiri Steppe does let us push through all of the chump blockers, but we need to get through the Flicker Wisp itself. Loran of the Third Path. The hits just keep coming. All right. Seorion, 80 card decks, they always have it. That's all right, though. Our opponent's deck is full of cards that are good against us, so they're going to arrange some combination of them. It is pretty annoying we drew that Pithing Needle the turn after we decided to go for it. All right. Elvish Spirit Guide. What is that doing for us? We can't protect from... What's going on here? All right, so we need to draw some more cards ready. We need more Pithing Needles. They also have the Caracas for Loran, so they can keep bouncing the Loran and blowing up our Pithing Needle. So Pithing Needle is not very useful right now. They also have Yorion that's going to be ready to go. I think our opponent has probably got this one. Right, so the Yorion's in hand, ready to flicker all their guys. Like I said, Pithing Needle doesn't do anything in the face of the Ran. I honestly think our opponent's just got this one, so I'm going to pack it up now. Alright, I don't think we can win it from there. Like, we had our window. If we'd have taken one more draw so we could play the Pithing Needle, we might have actually got there. But I'm not sure we're supposed to hold on to see if we draw one of our Thoughtseizes or our Needles there. Because if we don't draw... Well, if we draw that, that's also delaying us 2 turn cycles because we're not going to have the mana to immediately Needle and make our creature. So I think that gives our opponent 2 more draw steps. And those 2 more draw steps equals Recruiter of the Guard, Loran's Third Path, that sort of thing. So I think we were right to go for it. It was just unfortunate that it turned out as it did. We knew 2 of our opponent's cards. We didn't quite get there. Yeah, it's just one of those matchups sometimes. All right, let's go to round 4. All right, what does our hand do? It makes a turn to 2020. Or it makes a slower one. Okay, our opponent is a well-known Grixis control player. So that makes crop rotation lines less exciting to me. But does make the slow playing lines more exciting. So I think I will keep this. I think we do start out on the Dark Depths. Is that right? If we play Dark Depths out and our opponent has... and we draw an Urborg, we get to do our Hexmage and try it that way. Schooling time passed from our opponent. A Sylvan Scrying. I'm not sure this is going to result. Do we fire off this Spirit Guide to make this happen? This is the downside of playing the Dark Depths out first. We can fire off a Spirit Guide here for Sylvan Scrying, but I don't really want to give our opponent that 2 for 1. We're just going to hold up our crop rotation here. Now, we could have just crop rotation to try and go for it right there, but I don't think that's a good solution when we have better options available to us. Our hand is pretty Thoughtseize proof, so I'm happy to let this hit. Like we have, if they don't take the Spirit Guide, we can make a 2020 next turn. If they take the Spirit Guide, then we have like other plays that are good anyway. So this is quite a resilient hand. Right, they've gone for the Hexmage. Sure. They know what we've got to work with as well, which is sometimes quite awkward. So here's a Lotus Petal. That's actually a pretty interesting one. That gives us crop rotation protection. So we have a Dark Depths here. We have assembled a combo. Now the thing here is we don't beat... There's a lot of stuff we don't beat here, right? So Brazen Borrower is... Okay, they didn't have it. So what I was saying, there's a lot of stuff we don't beat here. But my understanding of this deck is it runs maybe like 1 or 2 answers tops in the main. So this beats a lot of their stuff, whereas if we wait for let them cantrip, they might find it. And then because we already have half of our combo ready to go, and 2 tutor pieces, one of which doesn't cost us any resources other than the card itself, I think we're in a pretty good spot there. Okay, Grixis. This is a matchup where we would like Duresses. And Tamiyo Safekeeping isn't really great here either. So it's probably just the Duresses, and we're not really in need of Pithing Needles. I might even play a couple of Surgical Extractions here. I'm just trying to think what James plays. Can't remember the last list. I know they posted a 5-0 list earlier today, actually. Just trying to think what was in it that we might want to be targeting. So Surgical Extraction, just for information, this matchup is really handy. I think he runs Opposition Agent, actually. So I would like to have some Abrupt Decays in for Opposition Agent. And so I think. Not of This World isn't amazing here. It's okay against Brazen Borrower, but I'd rather have another Decay, I think. Alright, we'll try it like this. I don't believe he runs Wastelands. Okay, we have the turn 2. Alright, have some black mana opponents. Do you want to play this out to play around Days? I think so. I don't believe our opponent runs Days, though. But they do run some discard. I think they've got Meltdowns in their sideboard. Surgicals, that sort of jam. Maybe we're supposed to bring in our own surgicals to beat their surgical. Alright. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent here. Brainstorm is not unexpected. Bowmasters, Plague Engineer, Snapcaster Mage. Okay. Snapcaster Mage is kind of annoying here. So if we play out the Hexmage and they play either of these to ping it, then we just make our 20/20 and probably win the game that way. So I guess we just take the higher impact thing. Although Plague Engineer stops future Hexmages from doing anything. So I think it's probably the Plague Engineer here. Let's make our friend. Over to you, opponent. You've got the card that you put on top from the Brainstorm, which is probably the answer to our Marit Lage. Yep, they've drawn it rather than shuffling away. That Bloodstone Mire was one of the cards we saw. So if we fire this off now, and our opponent kept a... I believe our opponent kept the answer on top. So let's play this out. Let's cast this. Go attacks. Right, they've got Orcish Bowmasters here. If they ping our Marit Lage, our Hexmage, yep, we will make a 20/20 here. So they won't get a guy. Alright, so they have the one card from the Brainstorm, the other card they've shuffled away. What was that one card? Shoulder's Edict. I will sacrifice the creature token. Sad, but it is the way of things. They get to rebuy this later on with the Snapcaster Mage. A Sylvan Scrying, you say? I'll play out this Thespian's Stage. I will do a little bit of attacking here. Our opponent runs things like Cling to Dust, so they might have the ability to gain some life, so putting them to 17 should be enough. I think Cling to Dust is 3 life, if I remember rightly. A Ponder from our opponent. Now, we know they have Snapcaster Shoulder's Edict. And that Shoulder's Edict is almost 100% the card they left on top with the Brainstorm. Our opponent is a very competent Grixis pilot. They know what they're doing. Sure, you can take our Elvish Spirit Guide. Opponent's got 3 cards in hand. At least one of them is going to be a Snapcaster Mage for this Shoulder's Edict here. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent here. Do they keep 2 Snapcasters or just the one? Nimble Obstructionist. Target activated or triggered ability you don't control. So I think we take the Snapcaster here. So we can make a guy now to dodge this Nimble Obstructionist. And I think that's the correct play. That Snapcaster could be on top of their library still. But we have to play around the Obstructionist. Right, they've shuffled after they've drawn a card. Yep, there it is. You never know, they might click the wrong mode by accident. Yeah. Okay, so we need to do this one more time. We do have the biggest creature on board, but they've got a 3/1 waiting in the wings. Put out a swamp here. We'll hold this guy back. It'll buy us some time. We'll take 1 hit from this. I'll play this. We can go and fetch a Bayou. We want to play out our lands though because our opponent's got Spell Pierce. Okay, they're just playing this as a 3/1 attacker. I think I agree with that as a strategy. So this turn we probably are blocking the Snapcaster Mage. Cracking this does make a difference to our life total in a way that changes the clock. So we're not going to crack our fetch land. And it can tap for black mana thanks to the Urborg anyway. So we need runner draws here. Okay, Abrupt Decay isn't unhelpful. That buys us a lot of time. Instead of a 2-turn clock, it's going to be a 9-turn clock. So our opponent got more power to add to the board. A Colligan's Command returning Snapcaster Mage. They're making us discard a card. Oh my... We're supposed to kill their creature in response to the Colligan's Command. But I misclicked. Like, I don't think it's going to make a difference at the end of the day, but that is definitely quite the punt. Like, they get to bring back the Colligan's Command next turn anyway. So we're pretty dead here. We needed to have runner draw anyway. Okay, that is a reasonable runner draw. So this gets taken out of our hand anyway. So yeah, we are dead here. Yeah, the next few draws we had weren't getting us there anyway, even if we bought ourselves a couple more turns. So we've seen these Snapcasters and things I don't think we want Not of This World's. They do have a Brazen Borrower though. But I think it's acceptable to run some Surgical Extractions to poke holes in what our opponent's doing. Doesn't give us a clean answer to Brazen Borrower. But we've got so many things to hit here. Like, this does assemble our combo, but we kind of need some protection, really. What is this hand doing for us? This is not really going to get us there, I think. Alright. I don't like this one very much either, but I don't think we can go to 4. Maybe we could go to 4, but... Okay, so we probably lose... No, we can't lose the Ghost Core. So we lose an Abrupt Decay. We probably lose a Surgical here. Right, let's see if this works or not. Like, our hand does a thing. So we should just play into that. We had to mulligan so we didn't get the protection we wanted. We were kind of looking for like a 6-card hand with like a Thoughtseize to go alongside our combo. Alright, they have a Thoughtseize. So we lose our Hexmage here. Can we draw it again? Boseiju who endures. That's something. Right, a Brainstorm. Pretty good from our opponent there. Okay. So shuffling away those cards and a Ponder. So our opponent's got an awful lot of fixing done in this turn cycle. Thoughtseize. We'll save. I think we save this for the turn we're trying to do our thing. Now, if we get Thoughtseized, that's annoying. Or if they Colligan's command us, that's also annoying. I think being able to actually poke a hole when we need it is more important. Another Ponder from our opponent. They shuffled their library off that one. A Hexmage. So this is a good example of why we held the Thoughtseize here. So let's have a look at our opponent's hand. This is really irritating. Because they... Well, Bowmaster's our Hexmage. And then we are forced to... Well, we're not forced to. It just dies. Or we make a 20/20 and then gets Jace bounced. So that's really frustrating. So we kind of need to take out the Force of Will to resolve anything here. But things just get awkward for us from there. Yikes. This is a tough one to navigate. If we'd have got this a turn earlier, so we can do it before the Jace comes down, we'd be in a good spot. The Jace is obviously a very scary thing for our opponent to be jamming at us. And the Colligan's command means we have to play the thing in hand. So it's kind of got us in a horrible, horrible squeeze here. We take the Bowmasters, and they'll pitch Flusterstorm to Force of Will, and then the Jace starts ticking up. We take the Colligan's command, and we can't resolve our Vampire Hexmage or do anything, and they'll just play a Jace of Force backup, and we lose. We take the Bowmasters, and then we play this, they force with this, and then just plus Jace to victory. We take the Flusterstorm, that doesn't do anything. We take the Force of Will. If we take the Jace, I think we have to take the Jace. Yikes. We can play this out into the Force or the Bowmasters. It probably has to be the Force here because we can make our 20/20 here. Yep, Force pitching Flusterstorm. I think that was the best way to navigate that turn. But it's not great for us. Our opponent gets to cancel our next draw with the Colligan's command. If it's a crop rotation, though, that doesn't do it. So we have a chance here. And crop rotation is one of our best draws right now. But we're going to draw the Thespian stage. I feel it in my bones. Alright, we didn't draw the Thespian stage. This gives us a buffer of cards as well, so that we can play around the Colligan's command slightly on the discard mode. Yep, there's the Bowmasters. Yep, they're going to ping us. We're going to be removing counters manually from our Dark Depths. Not really how I want to play the game, but... And it's unlikely to be enough either. But if we just, like, keep drawing lands, then maybe this ends up okay. We get to remove 2 counters a turn. But I'd rather not just draw lands. See if this one's any good. Like, we worked through a lot of our opponent's stuff, and they haven't had any chance to sculpt since we last put a spell on a stack. They don't have mana for hardcast Force of Will. It has to be pitchcast. So that requires them to have a blue card and a Force of Will here. Nimble Obstructionist is obviously not our friend. Colligan's command. What modes? 2 damage to any target, and we discard a card. Okay, well, now what we can do about that. We want to make this now to play around Nimble Obstructionist. Our opponent's got 2 cards in hand. Oh, did we get there? Oh, we did get there. Whoa. That was a tough one. But I do like the Grixis matchup generally with this deck because our opponent, their interaction with us is counter spells and Sheoldred's Edict. That's it. And if they don't have a Sheoldred's Edict, sometimes have Brazen Borrower and James plays one copy of Nimble Obstructionist. But those are like the main axes they interact on, which is actually something that we're relatively okay with. So, alright, we got ourselves a victory. So we've locked in the positive record. We're now going to the final round to see if we can get ourselves a 4-1. We're on the play for the final round. Our hand here, it's basically a 5-card hand here. I don't think we can keep this one. It does do like some of the things we want. This one gets there and dodges a wasteland. I think that's acceptable enough to me. We'll keep this, and we're probably throwing back. I've got Urborg and Yavimaya, so we can probably throw away the Verdant Catacombs here. So I think we lead on the Urborg. No, we lead on the... Oh, this is tough. Because if we draw a Hexmage, you want to be able to go, but that requires green mana. But if we play out the Bayou, that's the worst of both worlds. So we're playing out one of these 3 lands. Generally, I think we play out the stage here. So reason being is our hand is probably going to have to take it a little bit slow. And I don't want to help our opponent out mana-wise. A Ponder off of a volcanic island. So this could be Delver, could be Show and Tell, could be a slow grinding control deck. They chose not to shuffle. All right. So now we play out the Yavimaya. And we can hold open crop rotation around days if something weird happens. Ancient Tomb. Okay, so we are on Show and Tell here. A sneak attack. How do we cope with sneak attack? If it's Emrakul, we're just toast, I think. Well, not necessarily. But it's not great for us. Atraxa could be worse for us, could be better. It's hard to say. So we could try and crop rotate right now before they get more cards. I think that's correct here. All right, so we're in with this. We don't have anything like a Caracas here. I don't particularly like playing the Caracas. Okay, that is not an Emrakul. So they're going to take the sneak attack, the One Ring, one of these 2 lands, the Hull Breacher, and then they keep the Lorien Revealed. So sneak attack, Ancient Tomb, Lorien Revealed, the One Ring, Hull Breacher, Force of Will. They took Force of Will over the Brainstorm. Okay. Interesting. This 7 life they gain is real, for sure. Okay. So we're going to clean up. Are any of these going in the bin? Probably the sneak attack, Hull Breacher, and the Lorien Revealed. So that means they must have another blue card. Right, we have a 2-turn clock here. We don't beat an Emrakul. City of Traitors. The One Ring. Sure. Quite likely to find them the things they require. There's no point making our 2020 right there. Not this world. It is not unhelpful, but we know they've got a Force of Will, so it's not very likely to actually do anything. And they're not really a deck that's going to be trying to answer our 2020 that much. Right, they're drawing 2 more cards. They've got 10 cards in hand. They have an Emrakul. We do not beat Emrakul here. A Ponder. That's not an Emrakul. They also need a red source for it. They haven't played a land yet this turn, though. I was surprised they played the City of Traitors. I guess they didn't want to tap the Ancient Tomb twice. They chose not to shuffle. Okay, so this should be lights out for us. Here comes the Emrakul. Oh, it's just a Show and Tell. Or they just floating the 2 anyway. Vesuvan Drifter. Okay. Okay, that's a Drifter. Let's make our friend. Alright, our opponent's got to go clean up again. A Flusterstorm. Yeah, this isn't really the matchup for the old Flusterstorm, is it? I'll play out another Dark Depths. We will swing here. This will put our opponent to 20... Oh, okay, they're just going to lose that guy. Okay, sure. I was going to say, they could take it and go to 23, and that's still fine. Losing the Drifter here is kind of odd. I also think they probably shouldn't have got rid of the Lorien Revealed, and they should have taken the Brainstorm over the Force of Will. But the One Ring is likely to provide them the things they need. Right, so they're cycling the Lorien Revealed. I'm going to draw a bunch of cards, put an Emrakul into play, and we're going to be sad. There's an Emrakul. That's the game. Sure. Because we're going to lose all of our permanents, and we're on 13 life. So, what is good in this matchup? I like to mess with our opponent's hand and strip out that way. We also need some amount of answers for Magus of the Moon. So these things are all important. Pithing Needle is certainly useful here. Bojuka Bog and Ghost Quarter are not actually cards we need here, so we can trim those two. And how much are we realistically going to need to Knot of this World? I don't believe our opponent's going to be spending too much time and effort into messing with what we're doing. That gives us 4 more spots to find. Being able to hit Sneak Attack is nice with these. I don't think we need the full 4 decay. I think 3 is probably sufficient, maybe even 2. So we could like trim a couple here and get rid of, I don't know, maybe our opponent's one of those. I think we'll get rid of, we'll get rid of 2 Surgicals and we'll keep another Lotus Petal here. Like, I like to have a Surgical. Maybe I don't even need that many Surgicals. I don't want to draw a second one. So maybe I'd rather have another decay. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Like our opponent's build, I haven't seen sneak attack decks too much lately. They've been a little bit out of the meta, so I can't say with surety what they're doing. So we need a black source or a petal or something. I think this is acceptable. We're going to need a mana source off the top. But we have a nice piece of disruption, and we might be able to like doubly hit them with this surgical. We also have Pithing Needle to stop the sneak attack. So if we can surgical show and tell, Pithing Needle, sneak attack, then we're probably doing all right. This needs to be a Bayou. Let's have a look. The One Ring, sneak attack, brainstorm, force of will. Like, some of these cards are kind of annoying, but not the end of the world. We can also Pithing Needle with a One Ring. That's an interesting one. If we take the force of will, we know that we can actually resolve some spells. It's awkward because it gives them a brainstorm, but I think that's acceptable. So again, we are looking for a mana source here. Maybe we should have mulliganed this one. This one is kind of close. Like, we are relying on top of our deck, but mana is the most abundant thing in our deck, so I think it's fine. I think maybe we could have got a more explosive 6. But being able to shut down their One Ring or sneak attack is really handy. I think we might see the Otawara here, so they have the ability to do emergency brainstorms if they need one. Alright, it's just going straight into a brainstorm right now. Interesting. I mean, they drew some fast mana. They need to draw a lot of fast mana, though. That's a really interesting timing on that brainstorm. Right, so we found a useful one here. Let's go and get this Bayou. So our opponent's got a bit of fast mana, and they're unlikely to sneak attack, but they might be able to One Ring. So I think we cast Pithing Needle on the One Ring here. And then next turn we can play Hexmage and Depths, but we can try a Surgical Extraction first. Because for the sneak attack they need a creature and a piece of fast mana to do anything. Or they need 2 pieces of fast mana, right? So I think we beat this. Now if they've got a show and tell, a Vesuvian Drifter. Okay. Magus of the Moon. Interesting. Our opponent's got 3... They got 2 mystery cards in hand here. How interested in whatever the mystery cards are am I? Do you want this Magus of the Moon on top of our opponent's library? That's easier for us to beat than some other stuff. But we need to beat the Force of Will here. So I think the play here is hit the Force of Will to make sure we can resolve our mage here. Emrakul, the Eon's Torn, and a Brainstorm. Ah. Okay. I see how it is here. Understood. Okay, so we probably shouldn't have played this land out right now. So we need to Thoughtseize our opponent, clearly. And we can either take the Brainstorm or the Emrakul. But I think the correct play here is to take the Emrakul. Brainstorm does give them some looks at stuff. But if we take the Brainstorm, they can't put the Emrakul back on top, but they're drawing towards sneak attack being good. Yeah, this is a really awkward one, isn't it? If we take the Brainstorm and any Manus, then they need any red source, lets them put Sneak Attack in, and then that kills us the next turn. So I think we have to take the Emrakul here, as awkward as that is. Yeah, not a fan of that one. Not a fan at all. They get to see the top card of their library here. So they know what they're drawing into. And they get to see the top card of the library, or they can Brainstorm now first to try and just put us in the dirt right now. Right, so they found the red source. The One Ring, this gives them protection for a turn, but we're not attacking them on this turn anyway. But it means they can melt down and then start One Ringing next turn. We know our opponent's hand, but Brainstorm can put some stuff back on top. This is going to be a very tough assignment here. But you need to basically beat the Brainstorm. And they can melt down first, and then Brainstorm after drawing an extra card with the One Ring. Right. Interesting they've gone this way around. Sure. We can push through the blocker if they hold this back to block with. So our opponent will probably know if they're winning this game or not. So what is this? Quite a lot of mana. Is this just a big meltdown? Meltdown where X equals 1. I guess we lose our Pithing Needle. They draw from the One Ring. Yep. There is a Lotus Petal. A Ponder. Alright, our opponent is looking for it. So this is probably going to be a shuffle. We want it to be a shuffle. Otherwise we might be dead. Chose not to shuffle. That's terrible news for us. That's probably us cooked here. I've not really been a fan of a Sylvan Drifter in these sorts of builds. They're not... I left it on top. Interesting. Right, let's make our guy. Now, we have the ability here to cast a Sylvan Scrying for Sejiri Steppe. Give our creature protection from blue and attack for 20. Alright, we got the game. Alright. I like having the 4 Abrupt Decay. You've definitely seen the Magus of the Moon. We've also seen a bunch of other stuff here. 1 Surgical is fine. Do I need 4 Pithing Needles? Yes, they're playing the One Ring. I think Pithing Needle is better than Collector Ouphe or the Null Rods here. Null Rod can shut off their Lotus Petals, but impact our Lotus Petals. Maybe if we have the Null Rod in play, it makes things slightly more difficult for them. Like, we already know they're bringing in Meltdowns, so I don't really want to play the Null Rods. There is an option of playing Ouphes over Pithing Needles, but that's very slow. So I think we're just going to go in as it is. The Abrupt Decays pick up the Sylvan Drifter as well as the Magus of the Moon. There is an option to play the other Elvish Spirit Guide over one of the Pithing Needles. Sure, I will keep this. So we have an Inquisition, which is not unhelpful here. We have the ability to tutor for our combo. We have the ability to kill a Magus. Right, our opponent's got 4 cards in hand and they're passing. So the correct play here is probably the Inquisition here. They're going to Brainstorm and protect themselves. Sure. We'll take a Lotus Petal. Oakley dokily. So they got just monster plus show and tell, but they keep the monster in the hand in the face of an Inquisition though, surely. Alright, an Urborg. What are we doing with that? We can stop them putting a sneak attack on the stack next turn. Is that worth doing? Like, it's not nothing. Or we can Sylvan Scrying and get the Boseiju to kill the sneak attack. We need to fade 1 turn. I think that's acceptable. Do you want the Yavimaya in play or the Urborg? Probably the Urborg. Or Sylvan Scrying. We've got days here. That sets them back a turn for sneak attack anyway, so it's not the end of the world. Alright, so here's our Boseiju. So they need to have like an Ancient Tomb and a monster here. And it might not kill us. We might be able to reload. Alright, they're not playing the sneak attack. They're waiting until they have the mana. Understood. A Dark Depths. So we could Abrupt Decay this Lotus Petal to stop them putting sneak attack into play. I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to go for trying to win the game now. A Vesuvan Drifter. We do beat this, provided our crop rotation resolves. So black, black, green, crop rotate away our Urborg. Okay, so we're in Thespian stage. Thespian stage becomes a copy of Dark Depths. My trademark move, I suppose. Alright, let me untap. Draw for turn. We Abrupt Decay this. And we bash you for 20. Do you have a Chain of Vapor? Not sure what this Brainstorm can be. Alright, there we go. That's the match. That's the league. We are 4-1, which is kind of my average with Turbodepths, generally speaking. The matchup we lost was obviously an interesting one where you kind of have to beat their first volley quite often. And our opponent's first volley was like 3 things and kind of got us because they've got Wastelands, they've got Caracas, they got Aethervar, which allows them to do some really gross things with Flicker Wisps. They've got Solitude, Plows, and then they can start stripping away our Pithing Needles using the Loran of the Third Path and stuff like that. So it becomes quite taxing. That is actually a matchup where the Legolas's quick reflexes could have been useful, but we would have reflexed like one of their things, then we untap, and then they probably kill it anyway. So it's not ideal. So we finished with the 4-1. Let's talk about the list. So not much has changed. Obviously, the list, as far as I'm concerned, is very much a known quantity. Like the things that you can tinker with, I think, is the Elvish Spirit Guide, possibly 1 copy of. I'll move all the cards that I think you can tinker with into one place to help us out here. So I think this is kind of like the flexibility in the deck right now, which doesn't sound like much, and it isn't, because I think the deck is kind of dependent on doing the thing it does. And I don't think we want to change away from this. Like if you watch my channel regularly, you know that I think I on average finish with a 4-1 record. I think last week we finished with a 2-3, which was, or not, a couple of weeks ago it was 2-3. But generally speaking, it's like 3-2, 4-1, or 5-0 is kind of how we finish with Turbodepths. And I think, you know, these are the sort of the flex slots. If you need more discard, then you can tinker here. If you want like Legolas's quick reflexes type stuff for like slower meta games, then you can have that here. But again, you don't want a Legolas's quick reflexes over the 4th Knot of this world because you need the speed. And you don't want something like a Tamiyo Safekeeping or whatever over the 4th Pithing Needle. So you would have those first. Now, I guess the Elvish Spirit Guide is probably the most flexible slot you have here. But what I like about this build is it absolutely smashes the Blood Moon decks. Like, the Blood Moon decks are a really easy matchup for us. I think, I'll have to check my data, but I think my record is currently like over 80% win against Blood Moon decks with green-black Turbodepths, because they're just helping your combo. And between Lotus Petal, our fetch lands, our basics, Elvish Spirit Guide and stuff like that, especially if you got the 4th one, just casting Abrupt Decay is so easy, and you like just crop rotate in response to their Magus or their Blood Moon, and then you just kill it, and it's just fine. And those matchups I am a big fan of. Now, they're not, you know, a free win by any stretch of the imagination. And what a lot of Blood Moon players, I think, should be doing, obviously maybe I should be saying this because it doesn't help me out very much, but I think a lot of Blood Moon players should be playing just to be aggressive against us and put us on the back foot and rely on things like Dead and Gone rather than Moon Effects, because we're so used to playing against Moon Effects that they're not actually that good. But the Moon Effects are much better against the Rainbow deck. So you need to kind of work out which build you're against, which sometimes you don't always know straight away until it's too late. But yes, I was very happy with the performance of the deck today. I can't feel embarrassed about losing to the Death and Taxes deck that had many, many, many things for us to get through. And we did have that thing where we decided not to try and draw a piece of disruption on the following turn, and we did draw a piece of disruption on the following turn, but the problem was that piece of disruption costs mana. And if it costs mana, it means we then had to wait a whole nother turn cycle to go again, which exposes us to a whole bunch of things. I think we still lose that game if we wait and draw that Pithing Needle. So awkward for sure, but you know, sometimes it's possible to play well, make the right calls, and still lose. And I don't really think we had a plan to victory against the triple answer for our thing, and then just, you know, grinding out with all the other pieces and turning all their stuff back on via Loran. If we look at our matches today, 2-1, 2-1, 1-2, 2-0, 2-0. So that's like 9-4 in matches. That's pretty reasonable. Like the matches we lost, they weren't. Sorry, the one match we lost was a 1-2. So pretty reasonable. And yeah, I love this deck. I will try and put a video up of my in-paper version of this where I have all the old bordered cards available for this. My current build that I have sleeved up for paper is this exact 75, except one Tamiyo Safekeeping is a third Duress, and that's it. So I'm pretty happy with this build. Obviously, we're about to get a new set that is going live. Maybe it even goes live before this video goes out, depending on when it is scheduled. But I'm not sure that the new set is going to change much. There's some cards that people are like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like there's a modal green spell. There's a couple of modal green spells. One of them for 1 mana, one of them for 3 mana. Some people are kind of interested in the 3 mana one, but I don't think that card is very good. It's very slow, and I don't think the flexibility of it is good enough to make up for how weak it is compared to the other options. Like if you want to tutor for stuff, we've got better tutors, including one that actually finds us the hate card of Boseiju, which is really important. And obviously it's not going to be better than crop rotation. And then the other modes of it are kind of a bit wishy-washy to me. The 1 mana one might be better, but I'll obviously smash it in there and play it. I don't necessarily think it's where I want to be, but I'm going to try it a bunch and see if it's any good, because, you know, that's my job really. I love this deck. And if you love this deck, why not check out my Patreon? The middle tier of my Patreon gives you access to the primer for this deck. So it's a big detailed guide that gets updated monthly, where I talk about where the metagame is now, and I do a numerical breakdown of the top decks and how that impacts what we're doing. If there's changes in the ways the top decks are playing. I also put out the current list that I would personally run in a high-level tournament and why. And the guide discusses both Green-Black Turbodepths and Rainbow Depths. So it is very comprehensive. And if you have any questions on it as well, by all means, let me know, and I will add it to the guide. That's kind of what I like to do. And if you are interested in Turbodepths, by all means, join my Discord, which is linked below. It's a dedicated Turbodepths Discord with also my channel stuff on it as well. If you like Turbodepths, check out my channel and keep making 2020s. All right. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will stop rambling at you. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.